we thought it would be best to bring both Dan and Ruth to the Pai to kōrero, because there's a lot of stuff you can't say in a media release. You can't get the essence of everything across. But we also wanted our Hapori to have the opportunity to ask some pātai and get some clarity on what this new kaupapa is. So we asked Dan and Ruth to come and kōrero with you. This will be run a little bit differently. Dan will be asking the pātai, Ruth will be answering, and then we'll have about 15 minutes at the end for pātai, but please pop them into the chat as well, so I'll try and go through and answer them. This kōrero will be recorded and we put it on our members section of our website. So if you need to pop out, or if you want someone else in your team to come and watch, kei te pai tērā, we'll put that up in about a week's time. I think that's it from me. I'll pass over to Dan to start us with the karakia.
Ko Dan Walker tuku ingoa, hiuri au no ngā iwi, kei raro e te koroa i te mangi tutoa, titoia, araka te waka Aotea. Ko tito ko wari te tangata ko manu ia kai te apu ko Ngāti Ruanui Ngaru Ine Uku Iwi. I'm also from Kahungunu ki Wairoa and Tūhaurangi, and then Maniapoto and Tainui through my koro, and then I'm Pākehā through my dad. Kia koe, Ruth.
Kia ora Dan, and aroha nui ki a koe me tō whānau. Kia ora tātou, ko waiau, I whanu mai au I te whanganui atara, engari no kotirana me ingarangi o ki tipuna, he uri a haunonga iwi o Clan Anderson, ko Ruth Russell tōku ingo, ko te kaitautari pārongo matua o Te Tumu Paeroa. So kia ora tātou, I'm the CIO at Te Tumu Paeroa. I also want to mihi ki tōku tungane ko Te Hamua Nikora, who unfortunately can't be here today, Hau Tikanga at Te Tumu Paeroa. He's been really a great leader in developing the framework that we're going to be talking about today, and particularly the tikanga and te ao Māori aspects of that framework. So I will answer questions as best I can, but there may be some we need to take offline specifically for te hamua. So I guess I just wanted to open, I know often when we talk to people, Te Tumu Paeroa, sometimes there's knowledge of what we do, sometimes there isn't. I thought I'd just start very quickly with our mahi. So we are the Office of the Māori Trustee. We're the engine that sits behind the Māori Trustee, who is Dr. Charlotte Severn, appointed by the Minister for Māori Development. We administer around about 1,800 whenua Māori land trusts across the motu and other entities, and that's on behalf of roughly 100,000 beneficial owners. So we manage the leases, the finances, run owner and trustee hui to enable connection with whenua. And our vision is to protect and enhance whenua Māori now and for generations to come. So we work for and on behalf of Māori and seek to do so in a Māori way, which is part of what the kōrero will be about today.
Ka pai, Ruth. And yeah, mihi atu ki te Hamua, and his mahi on this has been immense. So yeah, definitely acknowledging him for for the last 3.5 years that you and him have been on this haerenga of building a Māori Data Sovereignty framework, and I think that's probably the key thing that a lot of people want to hear about. So can you give us an understanding of it and its development? Yeah,
sure. So I guess this firstly, in terms of Māori Data Sovereignty, I do want to mihi to Te Mana Raraunga and Te Kāhui Raraunga as the voices of authority on Māori Data Sovereignty in Aotearoa. If you haven't read it, the Māori Data Governance Model that was published, I think, in April last year, and also is a fantastic read. And also the mahi being done around Te Pā Te Watuwatu. I think in terms of advancing Māori Data Sovereignty for iwi Māori, that's immense mahi. And we certainly don't even start to pretend to be experts in Māori Data Sovereignty. That's not what we're about. What we are about is working for landowners, working for the whenua, and as I mentioned before, we want to do that in a Māori way. So I guess the genesis of it originally is when I joined, we were making decisions about information and systems, and I'd ask questions about Māori Data Sovereignty, and the answer would differ depending on who was in the room. And we agreed as an organisation that it was important for us to have a position to enable us to make decisions grounded in an agreed approach to what Māori data sovereignty meant in the context of our organisation and the mahi we did, the people we were working on behalf of, and the whenua. And this forms part of Te Tikanga o Te Tumu Paeroa, which Te Hamua has developed, which is a Tikanga of Te Tumu Paeroa. The Māori Data Sovereignty framework sits within that, co-led by myself and Te Hamua in terms of the development. It was also developed alongside a rōpū from across the organisation that brought their Mātauranga, brought their kawa from their marae, and we've spent 3 years so far in developing that framework. And we've got many years to go to continue to develop and iterate it and take lots of different steps to bringing it to life. So ultimately, the framework's about upholding the tapu, the mana, and the mauri of the information, and particularly the people and the whenua that are connected to that information. And that changes when we acknowledge that, those aren't just words, they carry a lot of meaning. It changes the way we think about how we handle information, about how we make decisions about that information, and who is in the room when we make those decisions. So the framework was developed to guide us in the way we do things and make decisions and do things in a consistent way. The components of the framework, we have some principles, and if you're familiar with the Te Mātauranga principles, you will see some similarities. Ours are grounded in our values as an organisation, which are tōtika, professionalism, manaakitanga, respect, mana, integrity, and kotahitanga, unity. And the principles for us are effectively our aspirations about how we want to enable and uphold the mana, the mauri, and the tapu of the information. What the framework does is then say, well, for each of those principles and those aspirations, what are we practically going to do? What's our position, and how do we enact it? So this is all about taking steps to enact that acknowledgement of the importance and the mana of the information. So some examples of some of the things that we've done, and I'll talk about a couple of concepts as we go through. Rango whakahaere is one of the things we've introduced. So if you're not aware, rango whakahaere back in the day when you needed to transition the waka safely from the whenua to the awa or the moana, the rango whakahaere are long straight logs, and a bunch of them were stuck under the waka, and you'd have people running from one end to the other to basically create a conveyor belt for the waka to transition safely. And so it's the rango whakahaere for us are our policies and practices, which have protocols grounded in tikanga Māori in terms of how we make decisions about how we share and handle information. The waka is the systems, and the kai, the people, the whenua that are in that waka are the data. As part of that, we've also implemented classifications. So our data is classified as either tapu or noa, and we also have a temporary state of rahui or embargo, and protocols around how we place a rahui over the information and potentially transition information from a state of tapu to noa for a period if it is safe to do so. That's introduced a few different things as we've gone through. So we have looked at when we transfer information, be that physical files. We have large holdings of physical files as well as digital. We have asked vendors that are working with that information. We've gone and had a blessing, a karakia at their premises. We have asked them to use waiwhakanoa when they've finished handling the information from the day. So they are acknowledging the tapu of the information by using waiwhakanoa and lifting that tapu as they leave for the day. Some other things that we've done, as we work through our processes around information management, there are things that come up that just don't resonate in a te ao Māori way. So we've looked at our retention and disposal schedule, and we're talking about the destruction of information, and that really, for Te Hamua and I particularly, sort of hit home and said, well, if we're saying this information holds the tapu, the mana, and the mauri, destroying just doesn't sit right. And Te Hamua said, well, we can whakamoe the information, so later rest. And with that comes certain protocols, around how you whakamoe information. If Tamua were here, we would talk to you about whakamoeing a whare and taking each piece and having karakia and returning it to the whenua. So it's things like that in terms of little steps we're taking to incorporate tikanga into the way we handle information. We've also done a lot of technical things. We, early in the piece, implemented cloud monitoring. So we're primarily an on-prem organisation. What we found is people were choosing to use cloud services to share information, for example, with owners, not necessarily understanding the implications of the platforms that they were sharing them on. So what we found is, despite the fact our position was that the data for which we were a kaitiaki was stored in Aotearoa, we were seeing data going to the US, particularly the US, but other places as well. So we had a program in place where we, over time, repatriated that data to Aotearoa where we could, Australia where there wasn't a suitable alternative in Aotearoa, and have some very specific in a small number of cases where we keep that data in other jurisdictions, but we use those rango whakahaere to make that decision. It's a journey. We've taken several steps to implement it. We've got many more to bring it to life, but it's definitely changed the way we do things and grounded in that te tikanga o Te Tumu Paeroa.
Kia ora hoa. Yeah, from my perspective, I saw the journey that you've been through, e hoa, from 3 years ago when you first did that karanga, saying, "Hey, I need to talk to someone at Microsoft," and you know, Microsoft, from where any kind of term like Māori Data Sovereignty was quite tough for Microsoft and other tech players to even engage with, so they tended to be quite wary. But I think our role as tangata tiriti, you know, because we are in Aotearoa, is to engage, and so we did engage, and to see that journey of our first hui to where you developed your kaupapa in alignment with many other rangatira, some who are on this call. It's great to see that, and also acknowledge DDSIT and their role in that journey too.
Kia ora. And I guess I'd be keen to hear, and I can talk about it as well, some of the things from your perspective in terms of bringing that Te Ao Māori view into Microsoft, and what's changed for you and for Microsoft over this time.
Yeah, well, I think for a lot of us at Microsoft, we've been on a journey, and we're going to be on a journey for a long time, but we have come some steps in terms of our respect for organizations who want to go on this journey. And we, I think, you know, Te Tumu Paeroa is an example of that, where when you reached out, we've got amazing people who within Microsoft, but they're all focused on different things, but you managed to bring us all together to be able to hui, and just that kaupapa of coming together with the right whakaaro to wānanga about what this could mean. You really helped us with that, Ruth, and allowing us to be you know, vulnerable and saying we don't understand. Te Hamua in particular really helped us, and that's been a great journey for us at Microsoft over the years. For me, it's you know, making sure that we are continually focused on remaining humble. You know, that if we ever come out and say this is what Māori Data Sovereignty is, then that's a failure for me. Microsoft should never say what Māori Data Sovereignty is, and it should never come from America. It's for Māori to define only. And I think Māori Data Sovereignty in itself is it's a fraught term as well, that can sometimes be used in different ways, but it's also hapu data sovereignty, it's whānau data sovereignty. There's all these many aspects to it that make up Māori data sovereignty. And that's why I think Te Tumu Paeroa, where you say what Māori data sovereignty is, it's only for you, and you will never go out and say this is what Māori data sovereignty is for everyone. I think that's really important too. It's going to be the future, or the future for me. I would love for Māori-owned data centers, Māori cloud, that's the future. And until then, we need to be thinking about ways and means that we can work with the options that are available to us. So, just mihi to you, Ruth, and Te Hamua, and all your whānau and Te Tumu Paeroa, and also DDSIT and the whānau all around who have helped make this as well. There's been other partners I know who have helped you on your journey.
Elder. Yeah, and I guess for us, in terms of how this is fed into the decision we've made to be an anchor tenant and to use cloud services, obviously, as I mentioned, the preference for us is very strong that we keep the data for which we're a kaitiaki in Aotearoa. One of the other, I've talked about the rango whakahaere, another of the really important concepts, which is a metaphor for the cloud, is the manu tukutuku, the kite. So Te Hamua developed a whakatauaki, aha roroa ua hautu, aha popoto hautu marika. So a long string is difficult to control, and a short string allows complete control. And there's a few elements to that. So that speaks of the comfort and the need to keep the data and the information close, and how that enables greater control. With a longer string, you can get access to high winds and the benefits of the high winds, but you need to be a good kite flyer, and you need to have a hand on that string, and you need to know that if that string gets cut, that you still have access to the kite. You need to know if the string gets frayed, that you are able to fix it. You need to know that if the kite gets caught in the tree, you're able to bring it back in. And so that's one of the things we look at. We always first look at, what are the benefits of the high winds, and are they differential to Tumu Paeroa, to Whenua Māori, and to Māori, and we look at, do we have a hand on the string? And for us, we are primarily, our tech is primarily Microsoft, and we're limited in what we can do with the on-prem versions of the technology. There's many things that we want to do to benefit Whenua Māori, to benefit the owners that we work on behalf of, that we're not able to do with our current technology. So what we see with the New Zealand North Data Centre is we're able to access the benefit of the high winds whilst maintaining a shorter string, not quite as short as it is at the moment, but it's certainly not a string as long as being in Australia or Singapore. And we're able to speak to the likes of Dan and to the team that are actually operating the data centre, and share the ask that we have, like having a karakia at the data centre, the importance of the advanced data residency to us, to get the confidence that the data stays in Aotearoa.
So one of the things that I've been asked, Iho, is around the specific benefits and tangible benefits that Māori landowners will expect from the partnership between Microsoft and Te Tumu Paeroa. I'm a landowner as well. I'm one of your, I guess, beneficiaries. What are the benefits that you expect, and what are the timelines you expect? Hey, sorry if you can hear cars being blasted in the background here. My kids
I can't hear it. I don't know if others can.
Okay, cool. Okay, good.
Okay. Yeah, and in terms of benefits, again, we look to that kite. So the first is the trust and control in terms of the security, resilience, and availability that those data centres afford. And what we are finding is increasingly it's much tougher to support those on-prem versions. Vendors around the place, that the capability that's there is in the cloud. So in the long term, enabling the availability of the data, the security of the data, we benefit from an investment there. In terms of the kite, there's a variety of opportunities that we're seeking to exploit in terms of, the data analysis, automation and AI integration between our systems, the ability to identify innovative and sustainable opportunities for whenua development, the ability to more rapidly respond to climate events, in terms of being able to gather information and provide that to decision makers, to funders. Access and connection for owners is a really key part for us too. For many owners, one of the only ways they may be able to connect with their whenua is through digital means. So we want to do a really good revamp of our My Whenua portal, where owners are able to access their information about the whenua, but it's quite static. So, being able to provide more interactive content, the ability to look back over generations about the information that we presently hold, to perhaps do some comparisons, see some of the layers and information we hold about the whenua, not just static images of the whenua. And all of that ultimately enables decision making and enables owners, trustees, us to enact the aspirations that whānau have for their whenua, through better connection with and ability to analyse the information. In terms of timeframes, we're expecting this program to take it's going to happen over the course of 1 to 2 years. We're already in the process of implementing some systems. Some of the bigger improvements, I guess, will take time because it is reliant on some of those core systems being in the cloud, but certainly within the next 2 years, there will be some noticeable differences for landowners, but there will be iterative changes as we go through the process over the next 2 years. Dan, can you tell us a little bit more about the data centre? I know there's some great things in there in terms of environmental and sustainability considerations to enable innovation. No, are we frozen?
Can you hear me, Iho?
Aye.
Right. Oh, it's starting to glitch again. Sorry, Iho. Thank you for that. Should we, because it's half an hour, should we just jump into some of the pātai, Katie?
There's no pātai in there yet, but no mai ngā pātai. E te whānau, drop them into the chat and we can ask Dan them. But while Dan's telling us about the sustainability component, drop in your pātai for Dan or Ruth. Kia ora.
Kapai. There are a few pātai in the chat. Oh, I think they're direct ones to me. So, okay, kapai. So this data center that we're launching an Aotearoa cloud. It did get blessed by the specific mana Whenua before we broke ground. And we're also partnering with CDC, which is a partner we've used in Australia and in other places, who will be helping us with our co-location data centers as well. So for us, we're looking to launch this year. The whole sustainability component of our data centers is renewable energy, and everything will be the latest in terms of sustainability and climate neutral aspects, things like water, things like power, things like our waste. All of that will be not just neutral, but also net positive to the environment. And so that's a massive focus. For those in the know, we announced the launch of this data center in 2020. So it's taking us almost 5 years to build this, and that's mainly because we've been really focusing on those aspects around getting every aspect of the sustainability components perfect. So from that aspect, I'm feeling very proud of it, and I'm also proud of how Te Tumu Paeroa and Ruth has pushed us as well. We are going to be doing a karakia over the data. Before the data goes in, there'll be a karakia done over the data centers. And that's new for us globally, as in never ever happened before. So even just trying to get American lawyers across the kind of concept of it has been a bit of a tricky thing. And I just want to acknowledge Jimmy, who's our data center leader for New Zealand. And to say that that's 100% done, it isn't. We're still sort of trying to get that sorted in terms of final sign-offs, but it's going to happen. CDC is a partner company that we work with in America and Australia and here as well. So they help us with data center capacity and building and so forth. So yeah, that's a little bit about the data center and the sustainability aspects.
Okay, there's
so I do have. Katie.
You're going through your inbox?
Yeah, I've got one. Could you speak to the data classification process? Was this easy for Te Tumu Paeroa? What challenges do you foresee for other government orgs in their transition to upholding Māori Data Sovereignty? And was or could part of this process be automated? So that was a direct message to me.
So in terms of the classification, the first thing we did was identify information categories across the organisation. There had already been some mahi done around that because we are a public office, so we have we need to comply with the Public Records Act. And then basically we spent time with both the Māori Data Sovereignty rōpū, but also the information owners to talk about that information. And we actually have three types of classification. There's tapu and noa. And that was relatively simple, I guess. Although it's not been static, we have made some changes as we've learned some things and used the classifications to make decisions and realised perhaps something that we'd classified as noa was actually tapu. We also have open and closed, which is more of a I guess a Te Ao Pākehā view of the world. So an example of something that might be closed that is noa is security keys. Not tapu in and of itself, but not something that you want to be sending out there. And then cultural significance, which is that alignment with the Public Records Act. So we do hold data of cultural significance, which does mean it's never whakamoed. We tried to keep it as simple as possible and not overcomplicate it. And we have applied those classifications to our retention and disposal schedule. We'll be applying them to the systems, and yes, it will hopefully be automated as part of that cloud move. So at the moment, it's not in the systems, but it will be.
Another one here: resilience generally suggests data should be backed up or replicated to a secondary location. How's this been handled in this new scenario?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's very important for us. We do presently have probably what I call quite a traditional backup approach. I will admit that we haven't yet got our overarching strategy for backups for the cloud. That's part of. We're actually into the detailed planning at the moment, and part of that will be DR will have an overall approach for the whole, but also specifically for each of the different types of systems, because there's different considerations. Absolutely, we definitely need to back up data. Some of that might be still doing more traditional means, some might be replicating to another location. It will be dependent on whether it's on what type of cloud infrastructure we're using.
And also we enabled early for Te Tumu Paeroa advanced data residency, which will effectively lock the data within the New Zealand data centres, and it won't go external outside of the New Zealand borders. So that's a new thing, again, that Te Tumu Paeroa have helped push. Another pātai was, when sharing the data externally, how does Te Tumu Paeroa ensure appropriate use? Is there any monitoring framework in place for reporting data, sharing agreements, etc.?
Yeah, so there's I guess we share information, obviously, with owners and their whānau. Also, quite a bit of the information is publicly available. You know, it replicates, for example, what's available on Pātaka Whenua. We do have, yes, data sharing agreements with other organisations, and that will include expectations. And we do have quite strong, when we engage with other organisations, including vendors, we have requirements that not only cover security and privacy, but also our data sovereignty requirements as well.
Any tips or words of wisdom, guidance for private organisations wanting to support Māori data repatriation? Oh my gosh, I'm in a nightmare. Repatriation.
So I think it needs to, so in terms of repatriation, some it's easy. It's about region locking a service, and it might happen over time or it might happen immediately. Some is harder. And even within Microsoft, different parts of it are easier and harder depending on whether ADR, Advanced Data Residency, applies. So I must admit, we do lean on our vendors a bit for that in terms of the technical capability around making that happen, where it's not as straightforward as just noting where you want the region to be. I guess the other side to that is thinking that's about sort of bringing it back in, but also if they are intending to use services that are offshore on an ongoing basis, talking to them about what those repatriate, do they want, is it for a short time, and do they repatriate the data after the project's end, or do they want to repatriate it on a continuous basis? And is there automation that can be used to enable that? And indeed, where is it being repatriated to? But I'd say it will be different, as I think Dan said, and I said, it'll be different for different organisations, for different iwi, for different hapu, in terms of what's important to them around the handling and management of the information.
Ka pai, te taka Keegan, e rangatira tira. Given that Microsoft is a US company, can the US government, by law, access data that's stored in Microsoft data centres, even though it is physically located in New Zealand? So this is a tough one, right? So effectively, there is something called the Patriot Act, and there is, if a certain president goes rogue and then enacts that Patriot Act, then yes, effectively can lock down US data from around the world, and there will be pandemonium, no doubt. There is also laws within New Zealand which makes it very hard for a US company to just come in and take data. I know that concerns, and even my own file of our data center and walk out. It's not that easy. Sorry, just saying my internet connection's unstable. Did you guys get that?
We did miss a little bit.
Sorry. Yeah, so someone from the US can and take your data. And even if they did, your data is encrypted. So it is, your data officially is owned by you. So I know that the Patriot Act says different, but it's very hard for a US government organization to take your data and to even get your data. So please be aware of that. Any thoughts from you, Ruth?
Yeah, I mean, it is a hard one, and I think I guess there's, and I'm not a lawyer, and it is a legal question. There's the Patriot Act. I think there are also other acts to be aware of, and Australia has similar things. There's the Five Eyes Agreement and stuff like that. But as Dan says, there are protections given the data centre resides in Aotearoa, which wouldn't be there if it wasn't. There is risk there, absolutely, and for different organisations, for different people, for different iwi, it might be that risk is considered too high, and it's not appropriate. Our focus primarily has been on the benefits that it brings and the assurances we have through the contracts that we have, and the terms and conditions of the licensing. And as Dan says, we retain ownership of that data on behalf of the owners, and our ability to control and access that information. So it is absolutely a risk, and it is a hard one.
But also, please be aware that if the US did try and come for our data in New Zealand, there would be, we wouldn't make it easy. So yeah. There is another pātai in terms of, so the ETA for the Microsoft data center is December 2024. Kia ora, Mike. We are, if you see our data centers, they're huge. One data center is the size of, well, actually the data center area is the size of Auckland airport. So, it's pretty big. And we've also got those replicating sites as well, one based in Silverdale and another one based in out west. So we do have those areas, a huge area sort of, and it's taken us a while to build it. But when it does launch, hopefully it does help a lot of you with your mahi that you're doing as well. Any other pātai, you can feel free to jump off mute and kōrero.
I had one, just because we recently did, mihi to both of you. First of all, thank you. This is really helpful. Our organisation is at the beginning of a journey as well with Māori Data Sovereignty and Māori Data Governance in relation to the payments network. So yeah, thank you for being really open with your journey, and definitely inspired. Some of the things you're saying are definitely, getting us thinking. So thank you very much. My question is because we recently did training on AI, and it talked about sort of from an accuracy point of view, and the fact that I don't know if I have a total handle on the source of the data, but it seemed to me that it surprised me a little bit where some of the data could be sourced from by AI. So I guess my question was just around that. Is the information being stored in the cloud then accessible by AI in any way? This is just my curiosity. Thank you.
Kia ora. I can answer that from a Microsoft perspective. Any of Te Tumu Paeroa data will not be used to train AI. So that's a guarantee that Microsoft make. None of your data that's stored in their data centers will ever be used to train AI. Even Copilot, it actually uses the Microsoft graph to train the AI rather than your data. It actually sits the AI next to your Microsoft graph, that's effectively the brain behind the Microsoft Office. If we're talking about M365 Copilot, it still won't use your data to train. So rest assured that that's the case. Yeah.
We're also designing some testing around the use of Copilot to check some of these things as well, and have guidelines around the use of AI, including some quite clear guidelines that it's not to be used to generate te reo Māori or Māori art. So definitely there's the confidence around where the data goes, but having some clear guidelines in place for acceptable use and monitoring around that, and having open kōrero about how AI generated information is being used is important.
And just the pātai there, in terms of, is the data encrypted at rest? Yes, Microsoft encrypt data at rest to enhance security and compliance. And they use various encryption technologies to protect data that's stored on its servers. And so, yeah, that's definitely what happens. One more pātai, and then we'll close off with a karakia.
I will just send an offer out if there's no pātai. If anyone wants to talk in more detail, we're really happy to share some more information about some of the steps we're taking. Also really keen to hear from you so we can continue to learn and improve the way we're handling and managing the information. So just a welcome to get in contact if you'd like to kōrero more about this.
Ka pai, te hoa. Kia ora, Katie. You want to say something to wrap us up?
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to extend a mihi tēnā kōrua, i o kōrua Mātauranga hangarau, he tēnō nui, tēnei kaupapa, so tēnā kōrua, e kore te puna mihi ki a kōrua, e mimiti ki a kōrua. So, and Dan, ka tuku he mihi aroha ki a koe me tō whānau hoki. So thank you both for taking this time to kōrero. I know these conversations can be like, quite intense, but this was a beautiful kōrero, and we really beautiful pātai as well. And thank you for coming to our hapori, offering your mātauranga and showing us the way that you're doing things as well. So ka nui te mihi ki a kōrua.
Kia ora, kia ora hoa. And e mihi ana ki a koe hoki for all that you do for our whānau, te hapori Matihiko, just to all of you. Man, this is Māori are taking over, man. It's just beautiful to see the awards recently, man, and seeing how amazing especially rangatahi, man. There's some amazing rangatahi coming through. So yeah, awesome. We'll wrap us up with a karakia as we go back to our busy lives.